some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a bloody favorite.
Yes, and this week we are reading your responses to the Cathedral Ward. Dave was not able to join us for the rest of this recording session, but we really appreciate him joining us for the main episode. And go listen to that. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time, and you should definitely support Dave and check out his stuff on the internet, because he is very generous and very insightful. So we have a little bit of follow-up just starting out. I'm going to go ahead and get us started with Robert, who says via contact, the barrels have chains on them as well. Why?
No, I don't care. Stop it with the chains.
He found a real loophole in Chaingate.
Yes, he did. Oh, man. The coffin gate.
Coffin gate, yeah.
If you call them casks, and if you call it casket gate, it still counts.
Yeah, exactly. The reason why the barrels have chains on them is because there are people in those as well.
Yep.
It's like that urban legend about the person who was in the barrel of rum that turned out to be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you feel about man-sized jars? Yeah.
Good. Good about them.
Well, why don't you take Scott?
I'll also take Scott. Scott says, Erden is pronounced Erden because it's using the German umlaut OE sound, usually represented by an O with an umlaut over it. Mm-hmm. The sound is a loose approximation of the O with an umlaut sound. The word Erden in German is an inflected form of the adjective Erd, which means desolate.
Which is super cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
We had a handful
of... Good. I was just going to say, when we learn more about Erden, we talked a little about in the last episode, he's this blood god, but there's a reason why he's formless Erden. Mm-hmm. And we get that kind of thing, him being desolate also kind of plays in the theming of the fact that one of the things about him is that he doesn't really have a body,
right?
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we had a handful of people write in with this. I super love the linguistic stuff when people write in with alternate meanings and with explanations for the interpretation. And I'm sorry if us speaking pronouncing it weird was any kind of slight.
Yeah, and also thank you for writing in, even if we didn't read your specific comment.
Yes,
about correcting it. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah. So Blaze writes in via contact saying, I just wanted to write in to let you guys know that there's a very easy way to avoid the whole issue of getting killed while using antidotes during the Bloodstar Beast fight. I didn't think to write it initially, but after listening to the appendix and hearing your criticisms of the boss in relation to other people's opinions, I was surprised, and I was further surprised to find that no one brought up this simple trick that makes the fight much more manageable. I had figured that this was common knowledge at this point, but if you just throw a pungent blood cocktail away from you, the beast will go charging after it, blood-starved and all that, which gives you ample room to heal /antidote /whatever. And even if that doesn't work out for you, you can you also have the option of summoning Alfred to take a lot of the aggro off of you. And that's pretty much the gist of what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of people wrote in with the blood-starved pungent blood cocktail. I'm surprised we didn't mention that. I knew that, though. I just didn't talk about it. And part of the reason why it wasn't a viable strategy for me is because the first fourth of this game I spent destitute. A couple of bad boss fights and having to do these runs for blood vials. I was putting all my money in blood vials and didn't have a lot of consumables, and doing a farming run to get money for these, even though they're not the most expensive thing in the world, was kind of odious to me.
Yeah.
Even though it would have made things. Yes, it would. Yes, it would have been odious to me. So I knew that. I don't know why I didn't bring it up.
I didn't know it, and I, like an idiot, said, "Oh, I wonder why he's blood starved."
Yeah,
yeah. But
that's still that's why he
Yeah,
that's not why
it's not causality.
Yeah.
It's not negative causality. Yeah. But yeah, I also didn't have that much trouble with him. I was more speaking about that problem of knowing when to antidote just in the abstract.
Yeah. So that is a good tip, though.
Yeah.
If you have some of those pungent blood cocktails floating around in your inventory, they will help with him. I don't think they trivialize the fight.
No.
Even if you throw one and then you go up and attack them, they don't last very long.
Yeah.
It just gives you a moment's breath. And I know we mentioned summoning Alfred for that purpose.
And mentioned how he's useless.
Yeah.
Relatively.
But he is useful to take a little bit of that aggro off.
Yeah. Give you a little bit of breathing room. Yeah. Also, I forget that items exist. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I love that this guy's name is Blaze. I met a Blaze at school, and it was spelled the same way. I wonder if this is the same Blaze. And he was much younger than me, and I kept talking about his parents being American gladiators, and he didn't get it. He was too young for it.
He stopped the conversation and said, "Out of the way, old man."
Yeah. Well, man, check this out. Also, I was at a coffee shop, and let me see if I can remember what it is. No, so I was talking to a guy, and he looked, he had like a mohawk and jean jacket and all these tattoos and stuff. And I ordered coffee from him, and he's like, "Yeah, Talon will be here with that coffee in just a moment." And I was like, "Talon, excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah, that's them." And he jerked a thumb back, and there's a guy in back who looked the same way, whose name was Talon. And I was just like, what is going on at this coffee shop?
No, I would expect that. Where I thought that story was going was that Talon was going to look totally normal. Like, he was dressed biz cash, like he had Dockers and a polo shirt on. It's a real flippy ham bone situation.
What's up with this like Mad Max themed coffee shop?
Yeah, it's fucking Portland.
Talon,
so.
this is Spider, and we're here to make you a latte.
Yeah, and if my experience is correct, no matter how they looked, they were the nicest people you've ever met.
He's okay.
Well, no,
it's my closest coffee shop. I think.
Yeah. I'm making a comment about Portland baristas who have all been universally delightful to me. So
yeah, the people in Portland are actually really, really nice. It's a true thing. But this guy, he's fine. Yeah. I guess my niceness quote tolerance is just up to where he didn't give me $20. Not that nice. So thank you, Blaze. Robert says via contact, "You guys seem a little confused about how Jira works. You don't need to avoid old Yarnum if you want to talk to him later. Just don't kill him, and as long as you come in through the back, he won't remember ever shooting at you. This doesn't really make sense, so it's an understandable mistake, but it's not as hard to get that gesture as you think."
Yeah, it's just a matter of us not covering every single permutation of that. Honestly, I don't remember us ever explicitly saying if he ever aggroes you, then you can never get his thing. It's just a matter of, I think it's still relatively unintuitive compared to what it possibly could be.
Yeah. I also think it's unintuitive, but even Robert mentions that it doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you.
It's good to know. And there are probably people who are more hardcore collectors than us who are probably really thankful for that information because they need that gesture.
It's a pretty good gesture too. Yeah. BJ writes in with our final piece of follow-up via the contact forum saying, "Gotta disagree with the discussion about Arcane or Blood Tinge for that matter. Those builds not being viable or worth it, if only because I don't want anyone to be discouraged to try it. My first run was an Arcane build with Ludwig's Holy Blade, and it was awesome. Admittedly, some of the spells are not as powerful as they probably should be, and some are very late game, but you can get a few very useful ones quite early. Really, it comes down to this. Why would you not want to be able to shoot tentacles out of your arm?"
So one of the things about this, I wasn't bad-mouthing Arcane out of, I did it. I beat the game with an Arcane build, so, I also tried to do it and found it, a little wanting. It wasn't just, an uninformed opinion, but, all of this is academic because it doesn't matter now because they've buffed all the hunter's tools.
Yeah.
So those spells, and that was the main thing I was talking about. I wasn't complaining about arcane scaling weapons, even though I was using the weapons you get from Eileen, which do scale with arcane, I believe.
Yeah.
So I was using an arcane scaling weapon. It just wasn't very powerful in my experience.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I haven't tried it with the new things. And then also the fact that, if you're used to being able to do damage through spells, you don't get any heavy hitting damage spells for a very long time. And you just get utility spells for quite a while. And even that tentacle out of your arm thing is just a knockdown attack. It does a pittance of damage. So it's very cool. It's useful to be able to knock things down from a distance. But if they dodge, you're wide open and you get, I love the way it looks.
Yeah.
That Augur of Abritus, that it's one of my favorite looking attacks in any Souls games, but I didn't find it that useful in most situations.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, my complaint still kind of stems from to be really, really viable by putting your points there, especially early on, at least in previous Souls games, making an intelligence build was useful right away. I think that it still remains I'm going to do this on my second playthrough kind of thing.
Yeah.
No matter how much they buff it, it doesn't change that, you would be better served by putting those points into different things early on.
It just makes the early game so difficult.
Yeah.
So even if pre-patch, and if BJ's right, and it is viable and cool. Like, it doesn't become cool for a while. So, like, it does seem like something that you should maybe put off.
I would never discourage somebody from trying something. It's just a matter of, are you going to fall into a trap?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Like, a lot of the things that when we give that kind of advice, we are giving advice for the first time you play through. Because the second time, who gives a shit? Like, do whatever you want. Like, do an all fist run, do an all Molotov cocktail run. Like, it doesth matter. It's your second play through the game.
And even the very structure of the show that we do is presuming that somebody is doing this is their first playthrough.
Yeah, we're really So
yeah,
that's probably more what it is about. So moving on to responses to this area. I'll get us started with it real quick. Kenny6 says R.I.P. Flory. So he says that, I think, in response to the person who talked about killing.
No, this was just the first response we got.
Oh, wow. After this next thing, which I'll also read.
Yep.
So Doug says via contact, and they'll give that a little context possibly. So I immediately killed the Cathedral Dweller, and I have to vent. As somebody who is new to the series, up to this point in the game, I had been brutally taught two things. NPCs are invisible things that live behind windows, and everything else is trying to kill you. Then I enter the cathedral, fresh off the Gascoigne fight, and this bedraggled monster makes a move towards me. So I slash it, along with 90% of the other quest lines. I totally get the idea that making a mistake like that might cost me, but with virtually all the interesting content running through this guy, it seems a little unfair to have cost me so much of the game on my first playthrough for an honest mistake that the game lured me into. I freaking love this game, but come on, can't we have him respawn along with everyone else?
I'm sorry I laughed. Like, I totally agree. Like, if you haven't played Dark Souls, you don't understand that something that you can't target and also doesn't run toward you is not aggressive.
Yeah. But I also think that it's possible that Doug's overstating how much of this that's cut off. Something I meant to ask Dave about, and Fred, I wanted to get his take on this, and I'll ask your take on it too. But like, what you feel about how this game handles NPCs and NPC quest lines as compared to later or earlier ones in the series, because with the exception of 2, like, they're pretty anemic. Yeah. Like, there's not much. Like, we talk about the old lady and the old man and Ariana and stuff, and there are quest lines to them, but they are not nearly as robust as what we found in Dark Souls 1. And the more I think about it, like, Dark Souls 1 is the outlier. There wasn't that much in Demon Souls. There's not that much in Dark Souls 2. And it makes me think that, like, From has decided that kind of quest style is a mistake and not to do it, which is a bummer.
Yeah, I think that I have a lot of goodwill towards the NPCs in this game because there are so many of them that are like the party that you can't interrupt, of all the revelers, doing this. Like, that's not a quest. Right. But it's still, somebody that you interact with who gives you information and details about the world. I really like the Ariana versus Adele. What's the other one? Adela, quest, or, like the way things kind of like articulate with, especially the guy you find in the Forbidden Woods. Like, that brings in enough of that, like, mystery, like, how are these people going to interact when they get in the same place? I think that's cool. But the fact that they don't have anything that is quite as satisfying, you know what? We can't talk about Alfred, so I can't say whether or not anything is as satisfying as Sigmire, right?
Yeah. Like, it is more like, I just like killing the Cathedral Dweller does cut you off from some content, but not so much that you couldn't be served by watching like a YouTube of that dialogue.
Right.
Like, it's not that significant. It's significant, but not as significant as the other major kind of NPCs. Like being cut off from Alfred, which, like, without saying anything more, like, that would be a bigger deal.
Yes, it would. And so like killing this guy cuts you off from some very low cost sedatives, and it cuts you off from a back door around the end game items that you need to get the right ending.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
If you fuck up something, like, there's one tiny contingency plan to get the correct ending. And this is one of them.
Yeah. So it's still it's a tragedy that you can't get that perspective on the world, which I think the NPCs really bring to these games, and was one thing that I thought was lacking from Dark Souls 2. But it's not quite the catastrophe, I think, that one would initially think before they knew the full scope of the way these things kind of bore out, which doesn't mean it's not disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say this to minimize your struggle. I'm saying that, like, if this is something that is weighing on you, it's okay. Like, it'll be all right.
You're all right.
Yeah, you're all right. And not just in the way that, like, we're all right because it's a video game and it doesn't matter actually in the grand scheme of things. Like, it is, you'll be all right because it's not as much content as it maybe initially looks. Like if you look at the NPC list and you're like, oh shit, like there's like 4 NPCs here I'm not gonna be able to do anything with. It's like, well, you know,
two of them
are barely stories. Yeah. And then the other two are kind of one story together.
Yeah.
That's maybe 2/3 of a proper NPC story in a regular Souls game.
Right. The one regular Souls game that exists.
Yeah. Or even like Alfred.
Yeah.
Like it's like 2/3 of that value. So is what you're really missing.
Yeah.
But still, you know, still useful. Still viable.
Yeah. So Matt writes in via contact saying, since the Cathedral Ward was the first area where we encounter Frenzy, I'm curious what your thoughts were on this as a game mechanic. When I first... I love it. Totally makes it for me. Sanity systems +1. When I first ran into the Y-shaped cross dudes in front of the cathedral and an unknown meter started filling up when they were hitting me in the face, I panicked and bolted. Having already run into poison with the blood-starved beast, I figured this new symbol was Bloodborne's versions of Dark Souls 1's curse, and I have enough bad memories of the depths that I knew I wanted to get out of there. Eventually, I figured out what Frenzy really was, and it didn't seem as terrifying as Dark Souls 1's curse, though it does fill a similar role. Is this a good replacement / evolution of the Dark Souls 1 curse / Dark Souls 2 Petrify?
No,
it's not. I love Dark Souls 1 curse. It's great.
Yeah, I think curse is really cool, and the difference being like that's an interesting idea. Like to me, it is more like just like bleed on, you know, bleed, like really pumped up bleed as a replacement for that. But like a replacement for curse, because curse is deadly, you know, and this is more or less deadly. It just needs to not fill up when you're not being hit. Like that's an inexcusable thing to me. And makes it bad because like the fun thing about dealing with the basilisks and stuff in the depths is like there's a clear marker of like when you're in trouble. Like not only do you get the warning statues they run into, but it's like, oh shit, I'm in this fog and a meter's filling up slowly. I have time to get out of this fog. This happens instantly upon hit. You don't know that an enemy is going to cause this based on their weapon. And it increases so quickly and continues to climb after you get hit. You know, so there's just no way to react to it.
And, you know, like if this was used judiciously, like Curse was, then it wouldn't be a problem. But it's used like with such profligance later that like just there's no like they don't conserve it at all. And like the problem for me, like the reason why I like Curse, like I would never say that it is a kind mechanic, but getting cursed actually introduces like this weird side quest.
Yeah.
You know, which like it's unintuitive the way that, you know, like the way that you actually do that side quest, but it still like says you need to go deal with this in whatever way, you know, in whatever way you can.
Yeah, because it has that permanence. And like I get what Matt's saying by saying that like it is meant to inspire terror. Like it's supposed to have the same gravity as Curse, but I just don't think it's as well implemented. And then also just the thematic thing is like as a huge fan of Insanity in fiction and as a mechanic, like it just doesn't do enough for me, if that's what it's supposed to represent. So yeah, I'm not into it. Yeah, I mean, and not if you're into it, great. But I that's the bonfire side chat position.
Yeah, it feels like a wrinkle, and it feels like something that would have been balanced a little bit better.
Me too, and still could be. Like people could listen to this show in 3 years when like Bloodborne Rondo of the Night Sanguine Nurse, comes out and be like, why are these guys complaining about Frenzy? All it does is, change your HUD display. Like it could totally change and we just don't know. But as of now, I think it's pretty broken.
As of 8:19 p.m. Eastern time on June the 4th, this is the way that we feel.
Yeah, 2015.
and I will tell you at 8:20 how we feel as well.
Yes. Yeah. So Robin says via contact, this is the area where the game
it's 8:20. I still feel shitty about Curse. Although I like that the icon looks like the Crimson King eye from the Dark Tower. Continue, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I apologize. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Robin. Robin says via contact, this is the area where the game started to mess with my head. I became aware that insight was changing things up. I started to get seriously paranoid. Those spears the peanut-headed statues were holding, weren't they pointing down before? Was this gate open or closed before? Does this door even open? Was it open before? Why is that super rude dude I sent to Yosefka sitting in this area? Did I choose the wrong option? Time to roll a real-world sanity check with a D10.
Yeah, like that. Like this area is confusing enough that you might forget the decisions you made.
Yeah, and a sanity check on a D10 That's how you do a sanity check. The
that's not some kind of weird Call of Cthulhu like non D20 level thing. No,
it's just not. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing Call of Cthulhu in D20, it's you roll D20 because you roll D20 for everything, and then but Call of Cthulhu uses a D100 for all. It does percentages for all.
Is that like
stuff.
the dice from Scattergories?
Yep. Yeah, just use percentage dice.
Yeah, I know. You just roll 2d10s.
Third edition. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like maybe they got rid of those in third edition.
No, but I know that if you're trying to roll that, you just roll 2d10s and one is the different color, but one is the primary digit.
Like, typically they'll have like an extra, like it'll say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Like there's actually a D100 or a D10 digit dice.
Yeah.
So
I never had the equipment for it because third edition on didn't really use that.
I didn't need them.
Yeah. But I knew if I needed to for some weird rule set, that's what it was.
Yeah. And dice sets come with them.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this area does start fucking with the head game, like bringing the head games, which makes sense because this is where it's the start of the seeds are planted for that tonal shift.
Yep.
Even though like we're gonna go to Carnal Lane, which is still spooky haunted house town.
Yep. Yeah. But in a very sad. God, I love Carnal Lane.
I love it too, man. It's probably my favorite standalone level in the game up until you find Canehurst.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I ain't gonna have someone throw shade at Canehurst.
No, I was just like, oh, this is awesome. Like this is a really cool like little standalone thing, and then it leads into like my actual favorite. Like I'm like, oh shit, it just keeps giving. Because I love Canehurst.
Yeah.
So Canehurst is my favorite, even though like Upper Ward is really, really strong too. Those are probably my three favorite. Like Carnal Lane, Upper Ward, and Canehurst.
I think in my effort to pronounce Hemwick the way I think Hemwick is pronounced instead of Hemwick, I'm unintentionally saying Charnel wrong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I should say it Hemwick Charnel Lane. There we go.
Yeah. Even though like I've heard like Hemwick as well as a thing.
Yeah.
Because there's like Witches of Eastwick, and that's not pronounced Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah.
You can do Wick and have it actually be Wick.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway,
I don't know if it's Hemwick or Hemwick.
Yeah.
If only somebody in the game would say
it. But they don't. Hugh writes in via contact saying, a quirk of the Giants I only noticed when a YouTuber, ENB probably pointed it out, is that after especially heavy attacks, their shin bone pokes up out of their knee. If you can hit it, they collapse and can be visceral attacked. At first, I thought it was just a matter of damaging the legs enough as I was using the long axe's L2 sweeps. The mix of targetable and non-targetable locations in this game is interesting. Compare Amelia to the Cleric Beast's targetable head. Also, the unnamed host of Urden Chapel went unnoticed by me for a very long time for one simple and mildly frustrating reason. After the cutscene of opening the doors, you are put standing past him, having almost no reason to come through that way again or walk past a lamp back towards the back from the Cathedral Ward. I didn't know he was there for quite a while.
I missed him as well.
Yeah.
So that's we talked about that. So
minor design
don't feel
flaw.
too bad about that.
Yeah.
I need to look up that shin poking thing though. That's crazy. That's really cool. That's really gross and gruesome.
Yeah, I love the idea of this thing transforming beyond where its like frame is tenable and exposed. Like, oh god, the idea of exposed bone just really upsets me.
Yeah, me too.
Happens every day. Happens every day, Gary.
Yeah, it's happening right now. like pretty much any terrible thing you can think of happening to a human body, even way more darker and more torturous things are happening to somebody right now. So it's not a fun thing to think about, but somebody is being skinned alive right now. Like it's not great, but it's 100% happening.
You know, it's funny. Like when I have those moments, like I try and take a mental population check of how many of X number of things are happening in the world around me. Like my immediate thought is how many people are fucking right now. Like just having the best sex of their life, or how many people are like getting a promotion or are having a proposal accepted. Like my immediate, like when I feel terrible, I start thinking, I wonder like how many people are just having a much better day than I am right now. Well, that's pretty cool because mine's probably coming down the line anyway.
Typically, I think about how many people are being skinned alive.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why we make a good pair.
Yeah, and even when I don't want to think about it, that's what I'm thinking. So. Yeah, or being set on fire, having something crammed under their fingernails. Or,
oh God, Gary, you're killing me. You're killing.
Yeah, it's awful, but I mean, it's happening. We live in a terrible world.
I know we do.
Yeah, Why doesn't the news ever show good things? Why doesn't someone do something about all the problems?
I don't expect the news to cover the good stuff.
Yeah, Anywho, then briefly, after that brief spot of fun, Sean Wagner says via Facebook, if Bloodborne was draped over Dark Souls, I think the Erden Chapel would be Firelink's shrine. It is the only place where NPCs truly collect, and the Cathedral Ward is as close to a central hub as you get within the world. I like that the centrality of the Cathedral Ward spatially matches the narrative centrality of the Healing Church. That being said, I can't say that I enjoy the act of playing through this area. There are moments I enjoyed, such as being killed by a sack bro, but that's a story for another time, the magical ball of cosmic energy murdering me, the brain sucker lobotomizing me, as well as moments where I actually killed things. There are some nice vistas, though I think I felt a bit of the fatigue with the urban landscape at this point, and a load of NPCs to find, and the area ends in a boss that was both amazingly frustrating to bash my head against and fulfilling to finally beat. And he misspells that fur-filling, and the only reason why I say that is because it sounds like a clever pun, and someone pointed it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fur-filling.
And also I didn't have time to correct it. So.
No, it's because I'm not making fun of John for saying that, but it sounds like a fun pun for Amelia. I think describing this area as a series of moments is the most objective way to explain why I have trouble forming a cohesive subjective thesis on the area. In contrast to Old Yarnum, which feels like narrative and level design flow alongside with one another, the Cathedral Ward lacks any real narrative impact for me. It is a series of good moments that, with a lack of connective narrative tissue, feels less than the sum of its parts. Perhaps this is because the Cathedral Ward and the Healing Church are such a central figure in the overall story compared to Old Yarnum, which is telling more of a contained tale. But when I task myself with forming an opinion on the area, it just kind of comes up lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. Like, to me, it is a fulcrum on which the greater story bends more than an area that tells its own story.
Yeah.
But what you're picking up on, and I can't remember, Sean Wagner is also the lore hunter, I believe. What you're picking up on where you're saying, like, it's not its own self-contained story, like, that's the kind of thing that we were talking sugar about for Dark Souls 2, like a lot of the time, like that disconnect that makes it hard to love a thing in part of the greater whole. But it being a little short story, like that can be immensely satisfying. Yeah. And that's what I think you're picking up on, whether you think that Dark Souls 2 did it well or not. Yeah. I think it actually did. And I think that I like the Cathedral Ward because of essentially the cutscene at the end. Yep. That's the thing that saves this area for me. Otherwise, I agree with you 100%. It doesn't have a thing it's trying to do so much. It's just more urban Yarnum.
Old Yarnum feels like a Dark Souls 2 level, shortcuts and verticality aside, to me. And what I like about the Cathedral Ward, is that because it is so kind of multifaceted, you're naturally going to gravitate towards the path of least resistance for you. Right. And you're going to find a way to get through it. And there's going to be something pretty interesting for you to find there. And that leads to kind of a confusing experience to, fit in your head all at once. But I think it's pretty satisfying on a whole, in a way that I guess a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I'm into it once you come back with 40 insight. Yep. And I'm into, it stands in contrast to some things in really cool ways. And like I said, this is where it starts fucking, like Robin said, it's where it starts fucking with your mind. And I like that. Yeah. But as a whole, there's just not that much to say about the area. And I'm glad
it was the biggest episode we've done.
Well, just because it's so big. Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why it's so hard to talk about as a whole, because it's this is just a lot of space where a lot of it is just stairs and buildings and dudes.
Yeah. Plazas. Just plazas as far as the eye can see.
Plaza after plaza. So I agree with you, Sean.
Yeah. Let us see here. It's my turn with Luke, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Luke writes in via contact saying, the Cathedral Ward was where my eyes first opened, not just the two on the outside, to the truth of Yarnum, which is fitting given that this is the area most altered by your character's own later enlightenment. And I is spelled E-Y-E. I like
that first subtle pun. And then it's real clumsy.
I mean, bold. Let's say bold instead of clumsy. Yeah, bold. Okay. I want to be charitable because I really liked that. He continues. A stickler for spending souls, I opted not to buy the gate key and explore all of the paths available to me first. Doing so made the journey into the Cathedral Ward proper feel illicit and inherently dangerous. I had stumbled into something stranger than any level that had come before, complete with hooded jailers, mind flayers, and otherworldly figures brandishing shamanistic glowing crucifixes, and I had repeatedly past points of no return to get there. I was no longer comfortable exploring my environment. I was no longer safe. The two moments that made the area for me, excluding Amelia, who was possibly my favorite boss in the game, sue me, Gary, were small, entirely extraneous touches. Picking up the hunter's set and hearing a strange noise trigger, rerunning the path to trigger it again, and seeing a strange, hostile gleam materialized. I scanned the environment for an enemy who might be attacking me from afar, and then made the maddening decision to bring myself to that brink and willingly step off into the arms of whatever waited. Though I didn't understand it at the time, I was amazed by the result. When I had made it to the end of the area, spoke to the gatekeeper, and saw that he was, in fact, long dead, I had to laugh and laugh maniacally, for I had done this to myself. This is the area that broke not my patience, but my sanity.
And if you're listening and you're wondering about that gatekeeper, he's in the vestibule of another area that we're going to talk about, so we didn't really talk about the gatekeeper. Yeah, because that will be when we talk about the Forbidden Woods episode. But it is technically still here, I think.
I hope it didn't really affect your sanity.
No, I'm sure it didn't.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's fine. Yeah. The parts that you talk about really liking, I also like, other than Amelia. Like, I also like the Bagman, and I love the portal thing, the little, like, whatever lifting you up. Those are also very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a density problem?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like, I also, and this is a side thing, and I'm not going to sue you, but, like, one reason why Amelia could never be my favorite boss, other than the obvious ones, is that, like, she isn't anybody.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about that with Bloodstar Beast and stuff, and that is something that's happening with this first part of the game that doesn't happen in the second game, where, like, you're fighting a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and that's a bummer.
Her title is her story, which is upsetting. Like, I like the emotional touches of her coveting this locket, but that's just about it.
Yeah, and same thing, Cleric Beast. Like, what do we know about him? Well, he's a cleric.
His
Bloodstar Beast, what do we know about him? Well, he was blood-starved. Father Gascoigne was very satisfying, but that's why, he's one of my favorite bosses in the game, where these other three, or, that we fought out of the four that we fought so far, like, kind of fall flat on me, because, like, some of them can be fun fights.
Yeah.
There's just not that much to them. And even Rom, which we said the name of, I won't spoil the fight or anything, but, like, Rom, who I think is just as frustrating, like, if not more so, like, I find that fight very frustrating. I can get into because of the lore and presentation.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, Amelia's presented well, but, like, Amelia isn't anybody, she's a nobody.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
I mean, the response that I would have liked to have read is a defense for why. I mean, it doesn't have to be defensible either. Like, taste is subjective, but I would love to hear why Amelia is your favorite. I don't know that we'd ever have a place to read it in the future, Luke.
Yeah.
But, like, just for our own, like, edification, like, I like.
Throw it on Facebook.
Yeah, definitely go to Facebook. I would love to hear why you like that. Like, and it's not that I dislike it. It's not like, oh, prove me wrong. I just want to know, like, what stuck out for you. Whereas it was, frustrating and bullshit for Gary, and it was kind of meh for me. Like, why it really kind of, like, stood out to you would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Yeah.
Like, and again, it's you don't owe us anything, but if you want to, you can. Mike says via contact, Vicar Amelia, although a hard boss, had one of my favorite enemy designs in the game. Gary's right though. Vicar is easily the second hardest boss for me, right behind curtain optional white one in the orphanage, and I still dread fighting her. However, Amelia started a new personal Bloodborne tradition, throwing pebbles at bosses. For some reason, the fact that you're doing 2 damage to something that has thousands of hit points is so satisfying to me.
Yeah. So you remember in the Dark Souls 2 season when I talked to Lobus about going through and doing a complete kill run where everything that you could despawn, you despawned, and he just, like, shuddered? I wonder if the full pebble run would get a similar response from him.
You can't do that. People have asked him that 1,000 times.
Have they?
You can't do a pebble run. Because you can only carry 20 with them with you at a time.
Oh, shit, yeah.
So you can't, like, he's done a torch run. He's done a lot of, like, low damage things, but they have to be, he's done only shooting. Because you can replenish that with blood. and with your life, but it has to be something you can have enough of, and you can't kill anything with a pebble. I don't think 20 pebbles will kill a crow. So, but yeah, that is very funny. Like, I like the idea of, and yeah, that boss, that you're obliquely mentioning, like, also very tough. Yeah, get us. Let's wrap us out, Cole. Wrap us out. That's an expression.
Yeah, wrap us out. So, Derek, I've always been curious. Derek writes in via contact saying, I've always been curious about when I hear about people who have problems with areas and how everyone deals with them. After the initial wall that was Central Yharnam pre-cleric beast for me, I didn't have any other big walls until a certain blank. I had no idea people needed numbing mist for Vicar. I rubbed some fire paper that the Inside Bath messengers gave me and an ample supply on my saw cleaver and went to town on almost every boss. I never used a blood cocktail, numbing mist, coins, poison, daggers, etc. How liberal were you guys with your items, especially when it came to bosses?
It didn't always occur to me to use items on bosses.
Same here.
I used poison daggers on levels more than anything else, but I did use those.
Yeah. Like tough enemies that I just really didn't want to deal with, they got the poison daggers.
Yeah. Especially in the Forbidden Woods. That was like the or no, not on the Forbidden Woods. Where am I thinking of? I know that I can't remember. I want to say Forbidden Woods, but I don't think you could. I don't know if you can poison those guys. Those snake-headed guys are awful. And that was something. Maybe you just use regular daggers on those guys. That might be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Or Molotovs or something. I use consumables on those guys.
Yeah.
Is my point. But yeah, and I never used coins. You know, there are a lot of things I didn't use. I never used the rope Molotovs. Did you use those things?
They just seemed like I really liked the regular Molotovs. And like, I use those, like I use them on this current playthrough, like where I'm trying to beat stuff kind of expediently for the show. Because I know they're going to be like, information has come to light that fire is really effective against beasts.
Yeah.
You know? So like I pretty much always have 10 of those in stock.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer is some, but mostly I didn't use them on bosses.
Yeah.
Mostly I use them just on levels. So. Yep.
And something that I feel like we ought to say, at least for the next episode, if people are playing along, is that Hemic Charnel Lane, it changes depending on either how much insight you have or how much or what time of day it is. So defeating Vicar Amelia will advance into night, and that has some changes as well. But there are very much two kind of different versions of that level that you go through. Yeah,
and it's not as big a change as the other area that has a big day-night change, but it's still significant.
Yeah.
So
as we stand on the cusp of that, like, I don't know why this shook that loose, but I feel like it's worth saying.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that is it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you have any feedback about that specific Charnel, Hemic, Lane, Lawn, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact. You know all the normal things to do.
Yeah.
As well. And I think that's probably good.
Just
we have
about
some
it.
very brief deleted scenes.
Very scant, yeah. But until next time, in lieu of deleted scenes, beware the frailty of men. Their wills are weak and minds young.
The E3 coming up and everything, so that'll be cool. Are you going in through? Are you gonna attend that? Or are you gonna go in through press? Or are you gonna go in through the new super fan initiative?
I didn't know there wasn't a super fan initiative, unless you're talking about the Bandai thing.
No. Oh, at E3, no, it's prosumers. There are consumers. No, I'm not joking. There are consumers, and then now they're opening up to prosumers.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's with an eye towards like people like. What the weird thing is it's they talked about like streamers and stuff, but I would consider, and streamers and YouTube people, but I would think that they would be able to get into E3 anyway under kind of like a journalism banner, since they'd be covering the thing.
So prosumer, everybody has to have a Canon Mark 5D or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the one way. Yeah, you got to be able to cover it somehow with a really nice camera.
But no nicer than that. Otherwise, you have to go through the other channels.
Yeah, then you're actually a professional. It feels like a name they came up with on a first draft, and then they were going to revisit it and never did.
Yeah.
like a placeholder name.
like prosumer is an insufferable thing in consumer electronics anyway. So I like that they're labeling people as though they were mid-range cameras and microphones.
Yeah. Finally. But nothing wrong with that. Are you a Fallout guy? Do you like
I am.
do you like that series?
I haven't played the first two, but I love Fallout 3 and what I played of New Vegas.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like it's my like Mistress series. Like outside of Souls, like that's my main game series. So I'm really excited about that.
I know Terramantis, that's like he's a huge Fallout buff. I mean, like I played the shit out of Fallout 3. I got every achievement. I played every side quest before I beat the game, and then I finally beat the game. I think I got every bobblehead. So I was really into it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's weird how like the Bethesda model that like I don't love in the Elder Scrolls universe, like those games always end up kind of feeling hollow after a little while, like works for me really well in the Fallout universe. Like it's just a really interesting world.
I liked Fallout 3 more than Skyrim, or I got more into it, but I don't know if that's just because I was a little younger and I had more time. But I also liked Oblivion more than Fallout 3. So I don't know.
So are their games just getting worse?
Most people would say they're getting better. I don't know what it is. I think, I know why Oblivion and Skyrim. It's just because aesthetically, I really like Force, and for that reason, I preferred Oblivion immediately. And then also, I think the side quests were better, and I tend to be a completionist, so like all the guilds were better in Oblivion.
Yeah, we did.
Had a better overarching story, so.
Yeah, the main quest in Elder Scrolls games, other than Morrowind, are not like the draw.
No.
Like we did Morrowind for the show, and we were kind of lamenting the fact that the side quest and guild stuff has never gotten better than Oblivion. But most of the other stuff about Oblivion doesn't quite work, like that weird social mini game and the Oblivion gates, which are just tedious and awful.
Yeah, I never even finished Oblivion. I finished all the side quests, but the main story I just didn't care because I didn't want to do the Oblivion gates.
Yeah.
Did you want to see Boromir kill a god for you?
Yes. I think that's why Fallout 3 was good, though, is because every area felt so unique that you would stumble upon. That's probably what stood out about that over like Skyrim and Oblivion, is every area. Like you find these random crazy people that's just completely different. Or the forest area where there's actually a forest, and it's like, wait, there's a forest.
If you get a chance, like if you and time is at a premium for everyone in the world, but like if you bounce off of New Vegas, give it another look. Yeah, like New Vegas is really good.
I did enjoy what I played of it. It was just something where I was working at G4 at the time, and I just played it while I was working there, and then it was like time to move on to the next game. So I had like 2 or 3 days with it, and I was like, okay, I liked what I played, got to move on to the next thing, and that was about it.
Yeah.
It's a high quality experience.
Yeah. On the level, Dennis forced us to do initiated a fuck, marry, kill conversation between. It is a buy, rent, or skip between XCOM 2, Dark Souls 3, and Fallout 4. And my buy was Fallout 4 actually, and they did spit takes. Just because, like, oh, don't you have the show? It's like, well, I'm assuming that my business doesn't depend on it. Like, I really am looking forward to Fallout 4.
Were you saying, like, were you making the presumption that was an illegally binding case of fuck, marry, kill?
Yep.
Because most games of fuck, marry, kill are not legally binding, at least in this state.
Yeah, I think they were making.
So it's buy, rent, skip, right? So which one was your rent?
Rent was Dark Souls 3.
Yeah,
and then skip was XCOM because I haven't played XCOM. So
I've actually never played XCOM either. So I don't know if I'd go Fallout 4 or Dark Souls 3 honestly, because I kind of just want a new experience. So I'm more looking forward to and hoping there's new IPs at E3 more than anything else.
Yeah, me too.
As much as I love the Souls games and I love Fallout, I just want a new IP.
Yeah, and there'll be some Nintendo stuff. Probably.
I'm such a huge Nintendo fanboy, and I wish I could talk about it more on my channel, but I can't because fuck Nintendo.
Oh, because they would send suits after you?
Yeah, it's like I love to talk about their games, but I'm afraid to. It's just like because I'm actually a huge Nintendo fanboy.
Yeah,
but oh well. Like I want to get Splatoon real bad, but I'm like I can't justify buying it at the moment because just as far as like business stuff goes, I'm like, well, that's just I can't spend that money right now. because I can't make videos on it, and I can't. I don't know about streaming it, so I mean, I guess I could stream it and get away with it, but
yeah. Then it becomes like a video on demand problem. Like, what if they go after that? All of a sudden, it's for naught, and if that has an expiration date, like I can totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm content to make videos about old Nintendo games where they don't care. I mean, technically, like by Super Show series, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but technically those are like very much legal. Everything about it's legal because it's all review and parody. Yeah. So there's nothing, it's not a Let's Play. It's very much a legal video.
Yeah. I've seen all of them except for the most recent one, I think. So I've seen, I have not seen the Chrono Trigger one, I think is the one I haven't watched yet.
Well, thanks for checking other ones out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, they're all pretty long.
I like them.
So
Thanks for making them. Like, no, I mean, I don't, I don't do it as a, I do it because I like it. So thank you for making them.
It's a really smart approach as opposed to a full-on Let's Play. I mean, even just from a consumability standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's closer to like, it feels like, it is just like an essay, like they're funny, but it also feels like more like an essay than like a straight up review, because at a certain point, some of those old games, like it's hard to be objective and divorce yourself, from them. You can just kind of talk about what you like about them, but it feels more like a like love letter kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a comedy retrospective of games I enjoy. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's just, I mean, like you said, I mean, I'm obviously going to be biased towards things, and I realize that. So it's just might as well just have fun with it and talk about games I enjoyed and lead people through it.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon